Hey guys, back with the Echoing Thoughts podcast here, episode number 54. And this podcast, we're going to just answer a lot of questions that I've gotten in my YouTube comments over Discord. So if you want your questions to be answered, I'm going to try this year to really spend some time to answer these questions that I've been getting. So comment below, YouTube, any questions that you have. We've been getting a ton in the past few videos, but we're going to go through a lot of them. I thought there was a lot of good stuff. But first, I wanted to talk about kind of the new big update from January, which was the normal Damien mode. And there's been some, I guess, discussion about, is it good for the game? Is it um, is it kind of a cop out? Is it too easy now? Is it not a good enough gauge of what hard mode is like? Is it not going to be a good enough stepping stone for hard mode because of how drastic the attacks hit? The attack patterns are pretty much exactly the same. It's a little slower. The attacks aren't one shot, and or is it good for the game? Right? I've talked about it last week. My initial thoughts were just how it's going to allow people to do endgame content, right? To try it, to get experience with it, whether or not it's a appropriate stepping stone, whether it's enough of a stepping stone to get to hard mode eventually. I thought at the time last week it was still a step in the right direction as far as getting people to get excited for content, right? To at least get a chance at Stigma Stones, even though it takes twice as long, a chance to do Damien and possibly get them excited to, practice hard mode a few times a week before clearing normal at the end before reset, right? And so there's been some discussions that I've seen in Discord about, this back and forth. And my perspective is pretty unique, where I've been grinding out hard mode for so long. We've passed on my Paladin for quite a bit, and now I'm my alts, my Demon Slayer, my Bishop that I play, Paladin. They're kind of in that normal Damien gear range, right? They're not 20 mil plus cap, but they're high teens, 18, and they're support classes. So their DPS isn't necessarily as important. But after running normal mode a few times this past week, I'm gonna be honest. For my opinion, there's no such thing when you're trying to start a 10-man team, trying to get 10 people together all at the same time to practice, to have the same level of commitment, trying a new boss for the first time, having buffs and wanting to grind it out and fail. It is no easy task. It is not, like, whether you're leading it or not, just finding 10 people is tough. It's not fun, especially when you have to have certain classes, Bishop Shades, Sias, Paladins, Phantoms. It's hard to find geared ones and hard to find good players, right? So, and that can all fit certain time frames. Some of us have kids, some of us live in different time zones. It is tough. Weekdays, weekends. So I don't necessarily think there's no such thing as taking an easy way out when it comes to forming new teams, trying out new content, trying to, practice. It is all very challenging. I remember, when I was doing my Lotus and trying to start a new team on my Bishop, it was frustrating, right? It's challenging, right? Because I've been so accustomed to my Paladin, clearing Lotus. We were one of the first teams to clear in our server, and then going back to starting from ground zero, it is not fun. And this reminds me of that. And it is, I think no matter, maybe the timing is a little suspect, right? A lot of people were saying that normal mode, usually most games would have the normal mode and hard mode come at the same time, similar to how Hard Magnus, multi, I think it had multi and normal mode come out at the same time. But I don't mind them being different. I don't mind them trying new things. I think that's good. It keeps people on their toes, right? It keeps people like, it's it doesn't have to always be cookie cutter. I think, introducing Solo Lotus when they did, maybe, timing wasn't the greatest, but I think that the fact that they did it much later than the team was nice, right? It may not benefit, most of the player base that's already doing it team based didn't really care. But then there's still a certain demographic that benefit from it, right? Or got excited for it. Same for this, right? My Paladin doesn't matter, but there's a huge player base that is excited for this, and are going to go through the grinds of practicing and finding team comps and getting reps and mechanics. And I think that even though it's not necessarily, as much of a stepping stone as some people think for hard Magnus and hard Damien, and hard Damien is a whole nother tier above, and it's going to be very eye-opening compared to normal. It at least allows people to have some sort of bridge, some sort of excitement to play the game, right? The gap's only going to get greater, in my opinion, between gear. You can see right now, full necro is like 18, 19 mil cap versus whatever it is now, 30, 40 mil, mid 40s mil cap is the greatest, right? So the gear gap is only going to get greater, and I think it's nice that they sort of had a step in between, because when the next bosses come out, like, people are just going to fall farther and farther behind. At least there's going to be more player bases, more players that are going to say they have stigma stones, they can invest in their characters by using that resource in some sort of way to make it to those next bosses that are expected to come out in this year, right? So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, whether you're a hardcore player, whether that has cleared hard mode Damien already, or someone that's trying normal Damien right now. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, because I think it's like I'm can see both sides. I'm experiencing both sides, but I still think that I tend to be in conversations in Discord and stuff that may be skewed a little bit more to the higher end players that have are already looking next steps versus kind of looking back at the general public. But that's just my initial thoughts. I'll be right back, and we're gonna answer some questions I got from YouTube. All right, so the first question that I got was from Chris Bake 3149. Do you happen to know the best way to farm Rudibus Chaos gear? I don't have connections to get into good guilds, and I'm mostly free to play, so I'm finding it hard to get anyone to help me with CRA. Yeah, I think that if you're mostly free to play, you're most likely needing a carry, right? You're most likely needing someone to help you run you through chaos. And the best bet for you is probably to still reaching out to guilds, right? It doesn't have to be, I would just look in the guild rankings for Fort or Immortal Dungeon and just try to reach out to some of those, more active servers, but that are willing to, take on new players. I think there's a lot of great people out there, a lot of great guilds that do just that, right? They're willing to help newer players sort of progress through those content, whether it's Commander, whether it's Chaos Rudibus, whether it's whatever it is, and find the guild that fits you, your time, your kind of level in the guild. But I wouldn't give up on reaching out to players, reaching out to guilds, maybe even Smega. Using a Smega during, or being on the lookout during more peak hours. So usually during night hot time in our server, or later on in the evening, the player base is more, that's when a lot of players are playing. So I'll try to be on the lookout for that if people are doing CRA kind of Smegas, or if you're just looking for a guild. But a lot of the times it's, you kind of just have to get lucky. But building connections is kind of the most, I would say, the most fun part of the game, right? Is the best part of the game. And doing it together with others, there's a lot of great people, like I mentioned. So that would be my first bet, and just show appreciation, right? Because there's definitely gonna be guilds out there. Just keep looking, keep reaching out, keep asking, and hopefully one of them hits you up. Next question was from kind of the opposite. To be honest, another Dimension 99. I always see free-to-play guides, but let's say someone wanted to pay to win. What are some wise first moves to go that route? Are there guides? So I'm gonna do my best to do a guide, but here and try to keep it short. But there's just so much to unpack. Like budget is obviously person by person, but let's just say there's two things that you have to know about the game, right? There's content that is pay to win, where you can just instantly pay, and you'll get it immediately. Say that's gear, like your weapon, like your armors, like all of that stuff. Star Force, what comes with it, Star Force, percent stats, attack, that all kind of comes with the gear and the armor and the weapons. And then there's the time gated stuff, right? And this is the stuff that I think is even more important that can really be, misunderstood. That is very challenging. And what I mean by time gated stuff is stuff that you obviously cannot, you can pay, but there's a cap to how long it's going to take, right? So for example, the biggest one is levels and everything that comes with levels. So there's levels, there's hyperstats, matrix points, jewels. You can think of even like Legion, link skills, alts. Those all take time. Or even if you want to, cap out at 300%, like you pay to win that way, EXP, you're still capped out on how fast it's going to take, right? Guild points is another one. Symbols. There's just so many time gated things. Like even like boss accessories, like for bossing accessories, the rings, the necklaces, the earrings, the pockets for commander, for bossing. Those are things that you can't just buy, right? And that's the stuff that takes you playing the game, right? And I think that's what makes, pay to win is like kind of baseline, right? Like getting so to answer your question, right? You first want to start off by buying finished gear, depending on your budget. There's levels to it, right? And the easiest way to know is to you can look at my guides. I'll post in the description. There's gear showcases all over YouTube. I know I've done it before. Knuckle, the shade on my team, does it. Edward has done it as well. I think Exorbis from Asia. There's a lot of people that have done it in the past. I think Rubido's done one before, but I'll try to link them in the description below. But it's easy, just YouTube, Maple Story M gear showcase, whatever it is, and you'll see what quote unquote finished gear is like. There's obviously levels to it. So mythic, you want an emblem or with the fancy backgrounds for the armors. Mythic is tier 3. Ancient is tier 2. Ancient or Necro is tier 2, the blue ones. Mythic is red. And then Chaos is tier 1. It's S tier. It is the pink background, right? Those are the levels of where you want to be at, right? The things you're looking at for finished gear is cuts, Star Force, Exalt levels, flames, potentials, emblems. It's a lot of stuff, right? But if you have any questions, reach out to me in Discord or just kind of compare it to what our gear showcases look like, our gear looks like. And then if you're in a guild or if you know some people, or reach out or, talk in Discord, what's good, what's bad. There's a lot of people that will help answer your questions. But I think the first thing you have to do is get finished gear within your budget so that you can get enough Star Force to get to Star Force 180 to 194, because your first goal has to be at level 200. That is where you unlock 5th job. That is where you unlock all your big major skills, your V1s, your V2s, your V3s, and you get your skill, your boost nodes leveled up. That is where all your damage is going to be. Before 5th job, before level 200, you're going to do no damage. Even if you have the best of gear, you're just going to be so far behind. You're just not going to be hitting that potential, right? And then, so that is kind of step number 1. And then I would just recommend, once you have the gear, get to level 200, max out your nodes, at least your boost nodes, get all your main skills to level 60. And then you just want to start doing bossing and leveling, right? Auto battling, find a permanent party in Star Force 194 and just try to get levels as quickly as possible so that you can get those symbols. You can get those levels. You can get those matrix points, like I mentioned, those time-gated pieces of content that, you're just so far behind when you first start, right? And so that is what I would recommend, if you want to budget and get your finished gear. But the real challenge is the time-gated stuff. The time-gated, things that you just have to do, the daily grind of playing the game. Don't rush it. I don't want you to burn out by just paying your way through and realizing there's so much more to getting to that end game, to getting to the highest level than just paying your way through and buying the best gear, because that is sort of at this point kind of just base level if you're trying to catch up quick, right? So that is my recommendation. There's a lot more to it, obviously. There's a lot to the game. Link skills, Legion is always a fun route to take. Those have huge benefits now. And that's kind of where I'd start. Levels, finish the gear, levels, and just once you get to level 200, your 5th job, just keep on grinding those levels, max those nodes, and start doing your daily bosses, however much you can get. If you can get weekly Lotus, if you're that geared, that'd be great. If you can do daily arc, that's kind of the goal, and that's kind of where everyone's at, to be honest. 99.9% of the game, end game, is Lotus and arc and the daily bosses that come along with it. So you can catch up pretty quick, but to reach that 1%, the top, top of the top DPS wise, the time gated stuff is just something that you just have to wait and grind out and just keep playing, keep grinding, and just enjoying the process. All right, I got more questions coming up. I'll be right back after this. All right, I got a few more questions. This one is from Hero Defi. Is this game worth playing free to play? What's the best approach when doing so? Making multiple accounts, multiple characters, and one account farming mesos. This was an interesting question, right? Is it worth playing free to play? I think some could argue that this is the best time to be a free to play player because of how much easier it is to level, how much easier it is to get to resources, how much easier it is to catch up, per se, compared to before. But some would also say, and I'm kind of more on this side, that it's extremely hard to get anywhere without, quote unquote, investing in your account, right? It's kind of maybe a bad analogy, but it kind of reminds me of starting on a business, right? You can always start by yourself with no money down, with low risk, and kind of just investing in your time, grinding it out, hours a day for years. And you may get there without, investing a lot of money, but the time it takes to get there, you're always sacrificing that time and that energy versus money to kind of reach that same end goal, right? While other people will invest, they take out loans, they have money that they have saved up, to they maybe group up and do it together with other partners to pitch in, invest in themselves, believe in themselves, and understanding that financially you kind of have to take a risk to grow, right? You're still going to put in those hours, you're still going to put in the time and the energy, but when you have some sort of financial investment backed into it, you can grow a lot quicker. You can take a little bit more risks. You can you can hire on people. You can maybe pay for mentors or trainers, or some sort of ways to, I guess, speed up the process, right? Of hopefully getting there, reaching your end goal, start making profits and gains within that first, X amount of years, versus just slowly grinding it out, right? Year after year by yourself, not, still spending the time, but not really investing to grow. And it's going to take you, much longer. And that's kind of how I approach it to this, to free to play versus pay to win, right? You can get there. It's just so much more of a grind to free to play, right? It's just takes so much longer. The time commitment, the luck involved as well for RNG, to the amount of things you have to take advantage of. While I look at the other way, right? For me, it's easier to start pay to win and then transition to free to play, right? Because there's so many ways to make mesos now with Stigma coins and Absolab coins. You can get those guarantee mesos through nodes as well, through training. You can get that guarantee mesos and sort of pay it all back, right? Or become, not invest anything anymore. You kind of already have that your baseline is already up here, where you're sort of just, you're steady. The income is steady and it's coming in, and now you can start to make gains, start, building, making progress in your character, and, without having to spend investing any of that actual money anymore, right? So that's kind of the approach how I think about it. That may not have been the best analogy, but I think that, it's kind of a, right? Neither side, like everyone's side has their own opinions, right? I feel like pay to win players and free to play players kind of have this free to play players kind of have this feeling that they are better than pay to win because they haven't spent any money. They're like, this is ridiculous. Why would you spend money on this game? And pay to win players are like the opposite, right? They're like, we're investing and we can get there. We're getting there and we can make money at the end. Or like, why would you spend so much time on a mobile game when you can just kind of get it all by just swiping the card, right? So it's kind of an interesting dilemma. Is it worth playing free to play? I do not think so. I think it's very challenging. You're like, if you're going to spend the amount of time playing MSM mobile, it's not meant to be grindy, right? It's not meant for you. The auto battle, right? It's not meant for you to be like reboot where you play hours and hours and hours. That's not what it's meant for. It's for working people to auto battle, do dailies that's auto battled, and then just set it and forget it. And then come back the next day, come back the evening and do it all over again, right? Yeah, it's very tough, very tough. But a lot of respect for those free-to-play players that do it. I know a lot of people that made it to the top that, kind of self-sufficient with all the resources that they have available to them now. They've been grinding for years and it's paid off. And the last question is from David Badoka, 6398. How do you maximize the use of multiple accounts without Nexon banning you? So I don't know if I should be answering this, but I mean, it's pretty obvious that I have multiple accounts, right? My Paladin and my Demon Slayer, they're both level 240 plus, right? There's no way they're on the same account. But Nexon's not going to ban you for having multiple accounts. They've already talked about it. There's nothing wrong with having multiple accounts. I think the issue comes in is where you start abusing this, right? And what I mean by that is when I guess you start just feeding mesos back and forth, like gaming the system, where you are just, doing things that seem, what is the right word? That seem like irregular, that seem unusual to the program, basically. So like bots, for example. If you're playing on multiple devices and you're carrying, you have one main that's carrying 9 alts into like daily content, Commander, CRA, it's just higher risk, right? People do it, but I try to play on one device, right? I play on my phone. I don't have an emulator. I don't play on my computer. I don't play an iPad or anything like that. I play on my phone. So whenever I do dailies, it's one at a time, right? It's a grind. But I try to treat it as if they are separate accounts, right? That's That's the best way that I do it. I don't try to do something unusual. Like even if, for example, that you're probably going to ask, I have all my CDD alts on my Paladin. How do I create all those inherit armors, fodders, and move it over to my Demon Slayer to attempt for my Chaos? Because, right, that's no secret. And the answer is I actually post it market price, right? I don't snipe gear. I don't do anything that's like super extra, because I feel like that's just, well, one, sniping, that's way too stressful for me. I don't got time to look at the market and just kind of spam back and forth for a low price and just kind of buy one arm at a time. I don't got time for that. I don't got the mental like capacity to do that. I just, that's not for me, right? So I just post things at market price, and it's as if, I'm buying it from anyone else on the market, right? It could be a random person. It could be a guildie. It could be, my Paladin's account. I think that is fair, right? I think that's not doing any sort of abuse. That's just playing the game, right? And it also helps to buy packages, right? It also helps to, to not seem, to seem like they're completely different, right? To treat them as like they're both mains. And so, I feel like I'm not doing anything shady against the rules, right? I know that you can have multiple accounts. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of people that have multiple accounts. But they're doing it the right way, right? That's just what they're doing, right? They're not being shady. They're not being, I think what gets people in trouble is that they have, they're looking like a bot, right? And bots are kind of just like, you see them, probably like emulators with multiple emulators out doing the dailies, kind of macroing or, doing content all at the same time. And that just feels like it's not for me, right? That's not what I do. So I just try to, that's kind of my thought process, not hiding anything, right? And I think that the main thing is if you're using the trade server, trade station properly, right? You're not moving mesos back and forth like in bulk, like crazy, right? Like you're not, I'm just doing daily separately. It just feels like that's like it just feels like that's acceptable. It's not sketchy. It's not abuse. And maybe I'll get banned. I don't think so. I think that's fair. But yeah. I'll end on that note. A lot of great questions though, from pay to win questions to free to play questions to about, my accounts. I knew that it was going to be a talking point. There's a lot of questions about how I'm able to, manage multiple accounts without, getting banned and things like that. It's a fair question, right? Yeah. Hope that helped answer your guys' questions. Feel free, comment anything in YouTube below. Discord, reach out to me, get a lot of DMs as well. I'm here, right? I'm willing to help, chat, love the game, love talking about it, helping people out. So appreciate all the feedback that I get. Thank you again. I'll see you guys next time.